Hello everyone and welcome back to another autumn style expedition Sunday, and we had a wonderful week of walking around our little lake this week as well. It was fantastic and we found all of the amazing things you're about to see in one day. It was so awesome, and I have to give Darling credit because he is the one who found almost everything you see, including these mushrooms. How did I miss these giant mushrooms? I just can't believe it. But it was a beautiful, beautiful day, and now that the weather is getting a little bit colder, we found so many of the reptiles that live around our lake. It was so exciting, including all of the turtles. There are so many turtles in the lake behind our house, but usually they skitter off as soon as someone starts walking up. However, lately with the weather getting a lot colder, they're trying to warm up in whatever sun is available. The sun sets earlier, it rises later. They need to get that heat from the external sources in order to heat their body, since they are cold-blooded creatures. And so you see a lot more of them, and oh my goodness, it was so fun. We counted over 22 turtles on this one log alone, and there were several turtles swimming around the log like they were waiting for a spot to open up so they could climb on up. It was so cute. And the leaves, you guys, I can't believe how many there still are. They fall and fall, and there's so many everywhere. They're crunching around and the squirrels are digging in them, but there's still these gorgeous yellow and gold and red leaves that are just falling from the trees. And this is another one of Darling's finds. I was totally stunned. It's a little skink. So he was also trying to warm up on the tarmac of the path that goes around the lake, and he was super duper chilly when I picked him up, and I just held him because he was just kind of hanging out by the path, and he was totally fine with it. He just hung out on my fingers, but it was really fun. So these are little skinks. They're not venomous or anything spooky like that. They're really harmless. They're just adorable. They run around. They try to eat lots of insects. And it was so much fun to find him. And I actually didn't see him. Darling was the one who saw him kind of moving around in the pine needles. And then I reached down and I wanted to hold him and get a better look at him. He's really cute. He's very different from the skinks I'm used to in Missouri, which are a little bit longer, and they had a lot more color on them, like the 5-line skink, which was so pretty. I'm not sure if they have 5-line skinks around here, and I'm not exactly sure what specific species this guy was, but he was very, very pretty. I loved his colors. And then once we were done looking at him, we very gently put him back where we found him. And just look at how perfectly he blends in. Look at that. Look at those leaves. Look at that coloration. As you pull away and you get further back from him, he just blends in perfectly. I'm really surprised that Darling was able to find him at all, because he just disappears into the grass and the pine needles. No problem. But later on the path, we went down what we usually call Snake Way, because we found a very tiny snake about the size of an earthworm there once. It skittered off before I could get any video of it. But this time in Snake Way, we found this really warm patch where the sun was hitting all of these leaves that were probably generating a lot of compost heat, and it was warming up on the bark along the trees that are around there too. And we found a lot of little anoles. There's 2 right here that you can see. And then there's this really tough guy. This was a male because he flashed me with his little neck crest just once, but he didn't show it off after that. And their colors have actually changed, because we have seen them green earlier in the season, and now they've turned into these little brown guys. And they're just little anoles. They eat insects kind of like the skink does, and they're very, very fast. They're a little bit faster than the skink to just start jumping around, but it was really fun because in this little spot, because it was so warm and because these guys are trying so hard to retain that heat as it gets colder and colder during the year, you could see anoles everywhere. So the longer we stood there and looked around, the more we started finding them just like jumping from the trees or like skittering up the trunks of the trees so they could get away from us. So it was just such a fun find. I'm real excited that we even managed to see them because they blend in so perfectly. And I think that's kind of a lesson in how, if you are out there and you're enjoying a nice walk in the woods or a nice walk among all of just the natural settings, slow down. So many people go on these walks and they're like, I never find anything. But are you really, really looking? Are you waiting? Are you holding still? Are you looking for the guys whose job it is to blend in and look like nothing? So just take that in mind. Well, like when you go out and you try to enjoy these kinds of expeditions yourself, is that a big part of this is just slowing down, and you never know what you're going to find. like these little minnows right here that were just on the bottom of a creek that we walked past. It was just so pretty. But my biggest and my most favorite find of the day was definitely this guy. This is the very first time I have ever found a wild ringneck snake on my own. And I was very proud because even though he really pops out in the video, the black coloring that he has really made him blend in with the tarmac of the path that we were on. And there were people walking their dogs, pushing their strollers, riding, rollerblading, running, that were just inches away from him. So he blended in perfectly. I don't think anyone else saw him. I just kind of glanced down and managed to see him. I did check to make sure he was alive because he was holding very still, so I gently poked him with a leaf and he was like, "Excuse you," and he just burrowed deeper under his scales. But he was such a fun find. That was definitely one of the favorite things I've ever found on this walk. And I did make sure I put a little ring of rocks around him, little white rocks, so that no one would step on him. And I saw people like looking and they were like, "Oh," and they like weren't scared. They were just making sure not to step on him after that. So it was amazing, and I can't wait to share some more expeditions with you guys next week. We'll have to see what we find and if it's cuter than this little snake. See you then.